AI is coming whether you like it or not. I do agree with Musk trying to regulate AI. At the end of the day, China's not going to try to regulate AI. I've made the prediction that China's going to win the AI race.
Meet Boyuan Zhao, the email marketing powerhouse behind over $30 million in e-commerce sales. He leads a lean, mean team of freelancers who build high-converting email and SMS systems that drive serious revenue. From ideation to design and implementation, he turns retention into pure profit.
If you look at like e-commerce distribution trends, we typically see like the US falling behind China by a couple of years. So TikTok Shop was the big thing. What is the next evolution of that is TikTok live shopping, right? Or just like live shopping in general. Elon is publicly owning a media company. This is the type of shit that I find really fascinating because it's like,
Hey, everyone out there. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Alan, CEO of FreeCapital.io, and welcome to Profit Powerhouse, the podcast where we sit down with inspiring entrepreneurs to uncover the secrets behind their success. We're here to learn what drives their growth, the challenges they overcome, and how they master their finances. Our goal, to help you achieve the same success while maximizing your profit. All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're thrilled to have Boyuan Zhao, founder and CEO of Plethora and emailmarketer.com, join us. Boyuan is a leader in retention marketing, helping 7 to 9-figure e-commerce brands implement cutting-edge email strategies that drive results. His companies take insight from industry leaders, transform them into actionable solutions tailored for growth-minded businesses. One of the coolest things is Boyuan is located and based in Dubai. He has used the city's strategic tax strategies as his personal and professional blueprint, leveraging his unique position as a global hub to scale his impact. In this episode, Boyuan is going to share his journey, the principles behind success, and the strategies e-commerce pros can use to strengthen customer loyalty and drive long-term growth. Boyuan, it's great to have you on the show.
Amazing. Alan, well, yeah, absolute pleasure to be here. Have we done one of these in the past? I think maybe we have. Yes, it was for
I think not in this specific format, but maybe in a Q&A setting.
It was for my channel, if you remember.
I do.
Yeah.
That was a good episode.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Anyway,
man. Yeah.
you've been in the game for a long time, man.
Yeah.
So for those who are unfamiliar with what you do, Boyuan, can you give us a little intro about yourself and your business?
For sure. So I've been in the e-com space for like 5 years. Specifically when it comes to email marketing, I've been serving e-com brands for the last 5 or so. We started off with ads and emails, and then I trimmed down the ad portion because, ads, quite frankly, like if you're a media buying agency, it's not like a huge value add, I would say nowadays, to e-com brands, because mostly it's just CBO, Advantage Plus, broad targeting, and then just a bunch of creative testing, right? So yeah, really delved in on the retention side of things, and now confidently I can say we're like one of the best in the world. Helped a ton of brands along the way, and now, yeah, it's just it's cool being 5 years in business because like your lifestyle improves, you end up making more money from a profit standpoint. And I think Alan's I work with Alan on the accounting side, so he knows the numbers quite well, hopefully.
Amazing. Yes, and full disclosure, Boyuan is a dedicated and trusted client of ours at FreeCapital.agency. What really inspired you to go down this path, Boyuan? What really inspired you to kind of be an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I'll be real. To give you the truthful answer, I was just broke. I dropped out of university. I had no experience.
That's a great answer.
Broke as fuck. I grew up poor as well, Yeah, and I just needed money, and I was like, life sucks without money. Ever since a kid, actually, because we were immigrants, right? So we immigrated from China to the UK, and didn't grow up with a lot at all. And then back then, when other kids wanted to, be a rapper, play football, be a wrestler, and I just wanted to be rich. Anything to make a buck. You know what I mean?
No, I get it. I was the guy who was, doing the $1 lemonade stands, when I was 10, just trying to make a few dollars, So I get that perspective. Any kind of pivotal moment you want to share with the audience that really kind of was that turning point, right? Where, a lot of businesses struggle when they're early on.
Yeah.
Is there any point in time you can point to, any stories that you can let the audience know that really turn the business around, right? Really create the success you are today?
The most interesting thing was actually the pivot from a combination of ads as well as emails. So I started off actually in the e-com space in like selling ads because as an individual, obviously I had never done ecom. I'd never done media buying. My background was in computer science with AI. So I knew I was like good with computers and I was like technologically capable, right? I wasn't a retard when it comes to using tech, computers, whatever. So I was like, how can I make money with my existing skill set? And obviously coding back then, I wasn't proficient enough to be a full-time dev because I had just dropped out, right? So I was like, ecom, because that requires a computer, right? Smart thing.
There you go.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, well, I've never ran an ad before, so let me just get a client and I can hire someone from Upwork, and I'm like technically competent enough to figure out the interface of Facebook's UI and everything. So fortunately, I was able to hire a very good media buyer, and we just scaled up some clients together. And the problem with that was, and this was a real pivotal moment in terms of like a big business lesson, I would say, is back then I wasn't in control of 100% of the business, meaning that I could do the sales aspect. Sure, I can bring in new clients through the door, but I was like atrocious at the ops side of things. And I was very heavily reliant on this individual to kind of like sort out all of the clients, relied him on client performance and that kind of stuff. And he got headhunted, unfortunately. So yeah, so as a result, my agency dropped from like 30K a month to like 6, right? And obviously back then 30K was like the world, because it was like really good profit for me. I just dropped out of uni and it was like more money that I'd ever seen in a month. You know what I mean? So that was very depressing. And later on, I realized there's a proper term for this. It's called key man risk. The key man risk was basically him and I. He just left. So 60% of the business just died overnight. And that was when I realized, okay, I need to actually be in control of the ops side. And back then we had a couple email clients. And I was like, I can figure this shit out, So went ahead and just did emails myself for like a year. I got quite comfortable, to be real with you. I think that was around the time when we did our like last podcast together from my channel, and I was like banking 200 something a year, something like that, maybe 250. Got comfortable for like a year and a half, and then 2023, I was like, okay, I can't stay this like 6-figure range forever. Can't raise a family on this, not in the way that I intend to, at least.
Okay.
So I was like, well, yeah, I just got to grow, right? So 2023, I really hit the gas. We went from like 3-man headcount to like 12 by the end of the year. And then last year ended on about, I think maybe like around 25, just under. So yeah, every year we've kind of consistently 2x'd in revenue. And this year we're hoping to do the same. I do understand it's going to plateau at some point, just given the nature of my space. But I think I got one more 2x in me before like we're more so plateaued. But also I'll be out of the business by then from a sales perspective as well. Like I'm very heavily involved on the sales aspect at the moment, but ops I've been out for like 2 years, which is really good.
Wow.
Yeah, I have a very reliable CEO.
That's incredible. Boyuan, can you kind of talk the audience through maybe some e-commerce listeners out there? What drives you to focus on email marketing over, like you mentioned before, the paid ad side of the business, and also just on the whole other side, which is the social media side, right? Well, for just people putting on content on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, or Meta, right, as they call it nowadays.
Yeah.
What really drives you to focus on just the email marketing aspect?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, look, when it comes to the upside of email marketing for a brand, it's capped, right? Like every brand has their own unique, like I guess, like ceiling. I don't know why.
That's cool.
It makes me look so unserious. But anyways, regardless, every brand, when it comes to their emails, have their own like individualized ceiling, right? And I've audited enough accounts and handled enough to know exactly what any given brand ceiling is going to be. And essentially, I then just implement my team to do what it takes to get them there. Now, the reason why we focus on emails as opposed to ads is to get them to that ceiling, we are in 110% control. Like, because we do the creative, we do the strategy, we do the copy, we do the segmentation, we do literally everything, right? So if we don't get results, it's 100% on us. There's 0 degree to blame on the client side. Obviously, there have been instances in the past where, let's say, a client is like super specific to the point where they just don't let us handle strategy. it's very rare now, because also it's like, because I pump out content and how we acquire clients, there's a very high degree of trust prior to them hopping on. So like clients usually just agree with whatever I say now and just trust that we know what's best for the accounts. But for example, clients on cold in particular, there's been a couple instances in the past where it's been exceptionally difficult to work with them. Whereas on the ad side of things, like there's so many variables that we're not in control of, you know, like creatives. We're not there to direct the photo shoots and produce the content, you know.
Gotcha.
UGC scripts, we can ideate them, but then it's still up to the client to hand them off to the right creators of the right demographic, right? And then, yeah, sure, we can edit them, but what if the raw material sucks, right? And fundamentally, also, to make ads work, you need product market fit to some extent on your product, right? And a lot of brands, unfortunately, lack that, you know? So on the email side, we essentially, because of the price point we charge, we basically like exclude the lower end of the market. And as a result, we only get brands that approach us who have established product market fit. And we really vet the founders quite a lot in terms of like who we want to work with. So yeah, and because like I have the biggest channel on YouTube for Klaviyo, that gets me a shit ton of the top partnerships. And and also fundamentally, we genuinely have a really good service. So all three things combined, it's like clients just find us and we're just like, yeah, we'll take you on. And if we say yes, we'll take them on. They will generally, well, like, yeah, get really good results because we're in charge of everything.
Yeah, at the end of the day, result drives everything, right? And you guys being able to give that pretty much a guarantee to them because you have control of all the elements is a very smart thing to do, right? Where
For sure.
you know there's no way people can point their fingers anywhere else. Where you're like, yeah, I'm gonna take care of all. Trust what we do. Trust the results we got in the past for other brands, and let us do our magic, right?
Yeah.
It's a great approach. Can you kind of also share, like, I know you said you've been really like 2xing the last few years, right, in your email marketing agency. Is there any difficulties of running such a big team now? You know, I'm sure like when you were just like when you only have a 2 employee headcount, you're like, okay, cool, these are the 2 I have to handle. But what are the difficulties or complication of running a 25 plus member team here?
Actually, you know what's crazy? Like the team was tougher to manage when it was 10 people as opposed to 25. Because at 10,
interesting,
you're not like at the level where you introduce that new layer of management. So for example, at 10 people, I was still figuring out the different roles and working very closely with my COO to teach him how to manage as well, because partially I was learning how to manage. Then we escaped that level, and now we're kind of at that like 25 approaching 30 headcount, where we need to introduce like a new leadership type of role under my COO on the ops side. And that's been kind of more challenging, but we brought in HR, right? And HR's role is to essentially go out and headhunt people. So now we're getting ready-made talent, right? So that's something that I feel like a lot of people don't necessarily talk about. It's like when you plug in ready-made talent, and also my HR, she's really good, right? She has a shit ton of experience because I headhunted her myself. So she essentially embeds ready-made talent, and as a result, our onboarding process is a lot smoother with the new hires. Whereas before, because I didn't necessarily have the time to go out and headhunt, neither did my COO, we just kind of like train people up from scratch. So what that meant was it really like forced us to have a very dialed in onboarding system to get someone from like 0 to hero in terms of email marketing very fast. But now we essentially plug a person who's already really good into that system. They just need to familiarize with our tech stack, and then they hit the ground running. And also, I don't deal with the day-to-day nonsense anymore of like, I don't know, like a team member would ask a question that is like technical. It wouldn't, I just never hear about it anymore, you know? The only thing, my primary roles is to drive growth of revenue and also just like have relationships with clients, you know, like not wine and dine them per se, but it's just like expanding a social circle, you know?
No, that's really smart strategy there. It seems like you have had an incredible management system where everyone has their own role. And I actually haven't heard this in more of a email marketing agency structure where you basically hire an HR leader to take care of all the personnel decisions, right? And you kind of like, well, I don't need to because I trust this HR leader so much that they're going to make the right hires, bring in seasoned, experienced people, and they're going to slot right in, right? Just continue the growth that you're driving, obviously, right?
For sure.
That's actually very, very cool. But I also want to, I think you touched up a little bit. It seems like your background is in computer science and AI, right? And you know, the boom in AI right now is going crazy. And 2025 is giving the year of the AI agent, as they coined it, right? Can you give us a little thought, you know, given your background of what do you think this year is going to bring to maybe the e-commerce brands out there and maybe to your own agency?
Sure. So, I mean, AI is coming whether you like it or not, right? I think it just depends on, like, for example, one of the things that really affected the market today specifically is China released its own model that crushed GPT, right?
Yeah, DeepSeek, right?
Yeah. So that obviously tanked the market. So if you look at like Nvidia stock, for example, it went down a little bit. But also other like AI US stocks. I've made the prediction that China is going to win the AI race. Why? Because bro, they have no like data privacy bullshit, you know? So if a government wants an AI company to like excel, it's like, here's data points from our 1.3 billion people population. You want face recognition? Sure. Here's the most CCTV observed country in the world. Here's all of our data. Just go label it, right? And then go use it, right? You want traffic data? Say no more. Again, all the cameras, imaging data. Here you go. Boom. Like, oh, you want communications data? No worries. We don't have messaging privacy.
Geez.
Here's all of the chat history for the entire population. Oh, you want this? Oh, like there's no way US can win, in my opinion, right? So yeah, it's cooked. So in terms of how does it affect our like day to day, I don't necessarily think it's gonna like
do you incorporate AI into your workspace right now for like the pass down AI training?
Yeah, so we're implementing AI more and more heavily on the copy side, right? And let's say ideation side. What I really think ultimately is going to happen is going to make someone who's capable more capable. So, for example, and also it's going to level the playing field. So, for example, right, one of my friends is building a really cool tool in the cold calling space, and what that tool is going to do is going to allow, let's say, a 1 out of 10 cold caller to get to the same level as like an 8 out of 10 cold caller with this tool, right? But the 10 out of 10s will still stay number one, right? Whereas in a game like emails, let's say, I can maybe with AI, instead of being able to handle, let's say, 5 accounts at once, I can handle 10, 15, right? With the same quality, with my brain as well, you see? So it's going to make a good person great, and a shit person is not a shit person, but as in like a incompetent person.
Like an untrained person, right?
Is going to get left in the dust, which is why, like, I think like now the whole concept of, for example, things like universal basic income and that kind of stuff, I think has some credence to it, like in the long term. Because I do think this AI revolution is coming whether you like it or not. Like, for example, if you look at like the pace in which Uber grew, right? Regulation has not historically been able to stop true innovation. It's just not possible. Why? Because Uber, they just went into cities and was like, yeah, we'll grow here. We'll use VC funding to grow here, and then we'll pay the fines later. It's just a fine. It's a fucking fine. Like we're stealing like 60% of the market share for like what, 250K fine? Fuck it. All right. To the taxi association, sure, whatever. Right. So in the face of true innovation, like regulation isn't necessarily able to stop it, especially if it's more like an arms race. Because you think, like Musk, I do agree with Musk trying to regulate AI, but at the end of the day, China's not going to try to regulate AI because China doesn't give a fuck, you know? And as a result, it's like, should America? Ethically, you should. However, I would argue that I'd be more comfortable with America having that power as opposed to China, because I'm a British citizen, right, nowadays. So, yeah, it's a much more complicated issue than people think. But in terms of like short term, on a micro level, how's it going to affect us? We're going to integrate AI. It might mean that we just slow down the growth of headcount, but that's okay. Like all of my entire team's going to be able to keep their jobs. It's not like I'm going to need to fire anyone due to AI. we just might need to hire a bit slower, but that's okay. I think it might drop the pricing power of a lot of agencies and services. Like, for example, accounting, right? And law, once like a really strong global tax advisor GPT comes out, a lot of accountants are cooked, right? But the top level ones will still stay because of like, they know how to set up like Cayman, BVI, different webs of entities to like mask your anonymity for your like trust and all of this shit, right? So at the highest levels, it's fine. But for example, rather than me asking you, Alan, like I did, I was like, yo, Alan, give me a sheet of like all of my expenses broken down like this, and then you or someone on your team having to manually do it. GPT would enable you to essentially just work more on a freelance basis, let's say, but handle the same capacity of clients, So I think the biggest thing is like, it's very, very important for incompetent people to level up their competence. Otherwise, like, I think social mobility would over time decline, just because like the people who truly want it are gonna crush everyone else. And that's the unfortunate reality, I think.
No, a lot of great points there, Boyuan. Yeah, I agree. I mean, AI is coming no matter what, right? And it really takes the people who wants to keep growing and keep climbing to integrate it well, right, in their work process and systems, because you're going to get left behind otherwise.
Yep.
Right? Other people are going to use the same AI technology, which is, it's cool because it's kind of like open source, kind of available to everyone, right? At the same time, it's just about you picking the right one and utilizing it to its full maximum ability to really keep growing, right, and keep climbing, so that you are one of the top tier firms in your industry, right? And then you won't be the one getting replaced. And yeah, I'm happy to say that you mentioned that no one's getting let go from your from your agency. So I'm sure anyone listening in on that on your side is happy to hear that. Yeah, and then like I feel like the arms race right now with AI is very interesting. OpenAI is investing $50 billion, right, in the next few years to try to keep their dominance, right, obviously in this space. But yeah, China with its ability to just let anything and everything through, it's gonna be hard to beat. And the thing is, like, I'm like, why are they focusing on banning TikTok when this is gonna be an even bigger threat, right, coming along?
Yeah, well,
really, they should be focusing attention on this ban, right, an AI ban versus like TikTok, which is just people doing dances most of the time.
For example, foreign U.S. dependency on foreign imports, that's a huge reliance. I don't actually think global World War III is as big of a threat as people think, because like globalization, just as if you extrapolate it out, it's like it's gonna get to so there's the without sounding too like escape the matrixy or whatever, but like one of the biggest conspiracies out there is like the one world government, right? That's what the elites are building towards. But actually, what that really is, it just looks like endgame globalization. Because endgame globalization with global travel, like racial homogeny is gonna basically be wiped out within the next few generations. Because why? People are having kids, like they're just interbreeding, for lack of a better term, Whites having kids with Asians, blacks are having kids with whites, browns are, it's just mixing, right? Because travel and immigration are being so like, it's just normal at this point, So that's just endgame globalization. And at some point, if we do get invaded by aliens, it makes sense to be like Team Earth, So yeah. So
whoa, we're thinking way ahead here, Boyuan, man. Aliens coming into pictures.
Yeah. I mean that's like very far ahead, but like globalization.
Let's talk about the immediate threats, right, to e-commerce brands in the next like say 3 to 5 years. What do you think the top 3 are to like e-commerce brand in this world of AI right now?
That's a very, very good question. So if you look at like e-commerce distribution trends, right, we typically see like the US falling behind China by a couple of years. All right. So, for example, back in 2020, TikTok Shop and these like social media direct shopping platforms worked super well, and it was popping in China, right? So that trend happened in the US, I would really say in the last like year and a half, right? With TikTok Shop.
Yeah, TikTok is huge about live streaming right now.
Now,
Live shipping shopping, I would say.
yes, so TikTok Shop was the big thing. What is the next evolution of that is TikTok live shopping, right? Or just like live shopping in general, which makes a lot of sense, right? It's like it's kind of going full circle. If you kind of zoom out, as in if you see this as like a microcycle and you zoom out a little bit more, it's like when the attention cycle prior to this was the equivalent of like live TV, right? So
QVC.
yeah, exactly. So they initially started with like plugging on traditional commercials, and then it was like late night shopping, right, with QVC, and then QVC became a 24-hour thing. So it's like, and then that phased out, and then because of social media, right, TV was kind of dying as a media platform. So I think live shopping is going to be really huge, and my bet is like the like social media channels themselves will really build out their in-house shopping platforms, which in turn might make something like Shopify for like lower end consumer goods redundant because there's no way to brand it, right? And also the friction is higher. And then also it might make the volume of usage on something like Amazon drop a little bit because it's way more convenient to shop on like Facebook or whatever. But then Meta and these attention companies might white label the. So I think what's Amazon's really good at is logistics, right? So they might white label Amazon as the logistics partner. I can see that happening, but then most of the transactions front end happen on the social apps. So, but so long term, I think D2C is here to stay. One of the things that a lot of the ecom guys that I know, especially like on the dropshipping side, a lot of entrepreneurs, majority are right leaning, right? Maybe not in New York or like LA and that kind of stuff, but like
California.
Yeah, like majority of entrepreneurs, at least I know, are quite like rightwards leaning. They were very excited for Trump to be in office, but I was like, if you really like heard what he's saying with the tariffs, it's not good for you, bro. It's really fucked for you, actually. Like if he imposes tariffs,
especially with importing goods, right? Yeah.
Well, especially from importing Chinese goods, it's fucked for you. So I was like, this is interesting because if tariffs gets imposed, then spending on domestic goods probably will end up going up. And as a result, dropshippers would find it a much harder time to make like the margin needed. You could argue you'll pass on the cost to the consumers like with tariffs traditionally do, but like it makes you no more competitive than just buying from like a all American made brand, So why would you dropship from China? So yeah, there's like a bunch of shit really. In terms of immediate threats, I think like you got to diversify your channels in terms of acquisition, but also diversify. So a lot of people are catching on to the diversification of acquisition where they're doing TikTok now, they're doing like Instagram. They're not only doing meta ads now, they're doing like Google, Snapchat, YouTube, Pinterest, but diversifying client acquisition channels is only one aspect. You got to diversify your distribution as well. Like all of the top performing brands that I work with are on Amazon. They're on Shopify, obviously, but they're also on TikTok Shop, right? They have different storefronts built out, and some are even advanced enough to more so on the like home decor, fashion, and that kind of stuff to be in like Etsy, that kind of stuff. Less so on eBay nowadays, to be honest. But like forming retail partnerships, right? Like one of my clients did a deal with Buc-ee's, the petrol stations. One of my clients distributes like 8 figures through Costco. So having those retail partnerships is really important. I do think like D2C brands are also catching on to the importance of retail as well. Because imagine you're spending so many ad dollars, right? Not everyone is going to trust you enough to buy online. So where's that demand going to go to? It's going to go to your Amazon, it's going to go to your retails if you capture enough of a total addressable market for yourself.
Yeah, and Boy, I think TikTok is going to be a key component in all of this, right, going forward, given the trends that you talked about. Any prediction on who's gonna buy up TikTok in the US?
I hope it's Mr. Beast. No, I'm joking. No,
I wasn't sure how serious that is. I saw his post about it, right?
I
Saying he's
believe it, bro. Like,
hey, I'm on a plane and I'm about to go buy TikTok. I wasn't sure how it was a skit or was he really like putting on a serious content.
no, I believe it because Mr. Beast, his goal is to become the biggest creator in the world by far, right? And imagine if you just own your own platform, you're gonna boost your own shit. Like Elon boosts his own stuff on X, So I can imagine Mr. Beast doing the same. And he already has the network of billionaires. Obviously, he's just like the front man, let's say, right? But like, as in he.
You said front man, that remind me of a Squid Game.
Oh yeah, literally.
Like he'd be the front man, like the one who's like all these like VIPs, wearing masks in the back. But he's like, yeah, we go there and buy a TikTok for us,
Yeah.
Pretend you're running it.
I mean, I think like TikTok. I highly doubt TikTok will get banned. I don't know who's going to acquire it though. I honestly have no idea. Historically, it would make sense for Meta to acquire them, but then you could make the monopoly argument to break up Meta. But then it's like, look, if you break up a company due to monopoly, like who are the shareholders at the end of the day? You could liquidate Zuckerberg, but like, what about the private equities that invested? Like Teal, all of these guys. You can like liquidate them, but at some point the owners are all the same.
It's starting to trend that direction for sure.
Yeah, like Biden was like, oh, the US is being run by basically an oligarchy, right? But it's been that way. It's been that way for fucking time, Maybe in recent years where they've acquired, like Elon is publicly owning a media company at the end, like a social platform.
Yeah.
But then these media companies have been like privately held by God knows how many people, and like people hate on Elon. I don't know. This is getting a bit too like airy fairy, but this is the type of shit that I find really fascinating because it's like talking about this informs how it would trickle down into the macro and then trickles down into the micro, how it would affect you personally. But personally.
Yeah.
It always just boils down to you got to work hard, be fucking smart, and you'll most likely be fine because there's a lot of stupid people in the world that are not trying. Added to that.
No, I just thought like it was really funny during that 18-hour ban where we had TikTok before it came back alive again. There was like so many people moving to that other Chinese social media app like RedNote.
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard of RedNote, right? Because they're calling them like TikTok refugees, and they're like, "Hey, welcome." It's like the whole like it was very ironic, right? Because maybe most immigrants move to US to find freedom, right? But then in this social media movement, everyone's moving to China to find freedom of speech in a way, right? Because US is banning one of the biggest social media platforms that a lot of people depend on. Some of them for their livelihood, even, right? Because TikTok shop has really blown up in recent years.
Bro, you know what's crazy? I lost $3,000 on the TikTok ban because on
$3,000.
Yeah, so on Polymarkets there was a thing which was like, is TikTok gonna get banned before May, right? And I bet.
Oh, it's like one of those like polls where you can wager on things.
Yeah.
Okay.
I put like 3K crypto down to bet against it, and I lost because it was banned for 18 hours. I was fuming.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious. Yeah. Cool. No, that was fascinating topic to talk about with you. So just switching gears here. So as part of a profit powerhouse, we like to dig into a little bit more about the financial structures of entrepreneurs and their companies. And obviously someone with such a successful email marketing, you probably have a lot to say there. Can you kind of talk about what we kind of alluded to is like the strategy behind you guys moving your company to Dubai, first of all?
Well, it's got its tax advantages, number one, right? Tax is a big tax advantages. But actually, so one of the things I was primarily previously structured out of the UK, and obviously the UK is not good for tax whatsoever. Structuring it out of Dubai has several benefits, reduced tax rate, but also I actually heard a very, very good argument. I can't remember if it was like either from Hormozy or from one of my friends or something. Can't remember, right? But basically, the bottom line of this argument is like, look, are you really good? Like, why did you make money in the first place? Freedom, right? You get to choose where you live, choose what you do, choose where you spend your time, what you spend your time on, right? So what you're telling me is you're going to move to a place that you don't like as much, you don't enjoy, who you know no one, just to save. Yeah, it's a really big chunk of money on taxes.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, isn't this like the definition of like working for money as opposed to freedom? And I was like,
That's a mind-blowing concept.
yeah, I was like, that makes so much sense. So I was like, okay, well, I want to go to Dubai because I see the benefits, but then I want to also make sure that I'm not compromising what my original goal is, right? I'm not like, trying to shackle myself just for the sake of like more money.
Yeah, like lower your quality of life just for the tax saving part of it.
Exactly. So I went to Dubai, stayed there for a month. Actually, no, first time visited for 10 days. Then I went to Formula One, and then I stayed there for another month. And I was like, you know what? I like Dubai. Back then, I only liked it. Now I love it. I'm a huge Dubai advocate. Why? It's super safe, super convenient. You're never bored. Like all of my clients in the online space visit Dubai at least once in a year, you know? So I get to meet everyone without needing to go to Miami, New York, all of this shit, right? It's great. Time zone's not too bad. Only aspect that's missing is nature, but I can get over it. I can get over it. Yeah. But like the convenience of Dubai, bro, is insane. Like I have maids come in 3 times a week. They come in. I don't have to be at home or anything. They never steal. They're very nice, very polite. I love my housekeepers, and they like wash my clothes, hang it out, iron it, folds it back, changes the sheets, everything. Like, oh, I need this pair of shoes cleaned. No problem, sir. We'll get it done. Like, it's just great, right? Whereas in Europe, it's like I've hired cleaners before, and they said we're here to clean. We're not going to wash your dishes. I'm like, what? Because I don't understand, you know? Everyone in Dubai is super polite, and like, yeah, like the only arguments people hate Dubai for a few reasons, right? Number one, they say it's fake, but then it's like you're just hanging around with the wrong people, period, right? And also, you've probably never been to Dubai and you don't know what people's like, because the way I see people in Dubai is like you got to see them for what they are intentions wise. So their intention is, I'm here to hustle, I'm here to make money, I'm here to improve myself. If we're not on the same wavelength, we're not going to hang out, you know? Like, I'm not going to waste time. But people perceive that to be fake because they see that as superficial. But really, at the end of the day, a lot of friendships, the best friendships always benefit one another, right? Like, my best business friends, we've each made each other at least like 250K to half a M. You know, I literally just bought a house 50-50 with one of our agency partners. And I'm like really good friends with him, right? We share a shit ton of business. And we basically did a handshake deal for this house because we had enough cash to buy one property each. Okay. But then we wanted to kind of like spread the risk a little bit. And I was like, he pitched me the idea and I was like, yeah, sure. Boom, handshake, sends me the money, we paid. Because back then we needed to make a quick decision, right? And the deed, we wasn't even sure if we can get the title deed in both our names separately. But like, it's like, done deal, you know.
That's a lot of trust in an agency partner, right? To do a house deal like that, but it really speaks to the relationship that you guys had
for sure.
And by the way, that was a great promotional ad, if you will, for Dubai.
Yeah,
I'm sure you convinced a lot of people who are like, man, why am I dealing with these kind of housekeepers? Like what Boyuan is saying is amazing, right? The standard of living you get there for, especially someone has made it in your range.
Yeah, it's not even that. You want to go fishing on the weekend? Take a boat, go fishing. You want to go desert? Oh, you want to eat at 11 p.m.? Any restaurants open? It's sick, bro. Like it's actually very pleasant. Yeah.
It makes me want to visit now, man. I'm gonna have to like put a trip on the calendar to come see you just for this, right?
Like your partner can walk around at night completely safe with the children, not being harassed or like
really
like robbed. Bro, you can walk around too.
I mean, we don't talk too much about this, but one thing heard from an outsider who haven't been to Dubai is women's rights is not the strongest in Dubai. Would you say that's true or false from someone that lives there?
It's complete nonsense. Like, for example, right? If I'm with my girlfriend, we're holding hands in public, not a problem, right? You should see how some of the women dress here. If you're foreign, they don't care. Like they just because ultimately, right? The vision for Dubai is to be an international hub, like the center of the world, right? And you can't be the center of the world if you're very strict on your own principles. Because at some point, if you rely on like foreign investments, you're gonna have to like acclimate to what the world wants, and they're not opposed to that. Like for example, they have places where you can drink alcohol. Obviously, they are more strict. Like for example, you can't like I don't know run around shirtless, drunk as hell. But like
Oh,
I don't think,
that's for most countries, so that's fine.
yeah, like I don't think you should be allowed to. Like for example, in the UK, if you're drunk in public, screaming, throwing bottles, you're not going to get arrested. In Dubai, you're gone in 10 minutes, right? But you shouldn't behave like that anyways. Like
Yeah, I agree.
like what's wrong with you? So yeah, like I like the law and order, and because people fear the law because they've heard stories about Dubai jail, they don't behave in a stupid way, you know?
No, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Oh no, that's great. Yeah, gotta go see it for myself. I think that's the key here. Yeah, and then for someone who has grown Boyuan's business as long as you have, right? I think I tell a lot of I would say younger business owners when they're just 1 or 2 years in, how important it is to keep track of their numbers, understand how much it takes to run their business, right? Operationally, burn rate wise. Is there any other metrics or financial management advice you want to give business owners out there who want to, be as long-term success as you are?
I don't know if I can call my success long term yet. I'm 5 years in the game, Give me
5 years actually, statistically, only 21% of businesses make it to 5 years.
Oh, okay. So I'll give you the quick financial thing first, and then I want to talk about that statistic because I think it's completely.
Okay.
So, in terms of financial management, no, but I will tell you about emotional management because I think a lot of financial mismanagement is due to your lack of emotional discipline, right? Because, like for
Interesting.
example,
Okay. Love to hear
you
it.
have a high month and you make 100 grand in profit that month, right? But previously you were making 20. So emotionally, you have the emotional maturity to handle 20. So what do? You pull some out of the business, you spend it on bullshit, and then next month payroll comes or revenue drops in a lot of cases because if you scale too fast, if you're a service business, let's say, you can't handle the new client volume, next month you're going to get a churn, and then you're not like sales doesn't keep up, hiring doesn't, you're fucked, right? Long story short. If in many spaces, like if you're in fashion, you take out all your money and now you get a bunch of refunds because there's generally like a 14 to 28 delay on that. Or like returns, that kind of shit you don't factor in. Stripe holds, a bunch of crap, right? You're cooked. So emotional discipline is very, very important. Don't let yourself get too high, but don't let yourself get too low as well. Like for example, when I dropped from like 30K, like when I lost 60%, 70% of my fucking revenue, I was low, bro. Like I was questioning myself, like, oh, are you ever gonna make it like this to this level again? Are you like a one-trick pony? And I was like, I couldn't sleep for days, bro. And I was like chain smoking cigarettes,
Oh no.
like sitting on my window ledge, like at 3 a.m., like looking like I'm
Oh
dumb.
no. Not one of those buildings.
Yeah, but I mean, there's only like the two-story house, so it's not that bad.
Okay.
But like, yeah, even if I jumped, I would have like, I don't know, fractured an ankle or something. But like, don't let yourself get too high. Don't let yourself get too low. Try to maintain like emotional objectivity and feel relatively stable, like a stable level of joy. That's the best place to be, and just like relaxed, cool, keep a clear head. And when you catch yourself being too emotional, like for example, last year I had an instance where an employee tried to take team clients, right? Which obviously is like rule number one of the agency: don't fucking do that. Like, don't be stupid.
Mm-hmm.
I was very hot-headed, and I was like, you know what? Before I just even call this guy out, let me sleep on it, Or like, what happened? What's another, like, for example, what I typically do is I delay my lifestyle by 1 year at least. So, for example, in my first year, I made like 90K net, I spent $500 a month that entire year, every single month. I think collectively, I've spent maybe like 8, right? But that's like very conservative. you know. But next year I bought out.
No, incredible. Yeah.
You know, I bought out a little bit. I was able to spend like 3K, maybe 3K, something like that, you know. But then that year I made like 160 or maybe more. I can't remember. But like maybe made 160, you know. But then the year after I spent maybe like 3 to 5, you know. And then last year I spent a lot but then the previous year I netted half a M, you know. So this year I'm a bit more careless with my spending, but I'm spending to a comfortable level of what I was making last year. And this is on a personal level, you know?
No, I mean, it's important to live below your means, right? But also live to a proportion of your wealth at the time,
Yes.
right? It's like it seems like you're spending more, but really at the growth and the net profit that you're taking,
Yep.
right? It still nets out around the same ratio, right? Which is very smart, right? And it's also, you have to kind of celebrate your success, right? You're doing better. You're not going to keep eating instant cup noodles every year when you're making $500,000, right? But then again, you also know that I'm going to live at this level, but I also know that I want to live at a better level. So it also motivates yourself to do better. It's like, okay, I want to spend 10% of my profit, but if I can make, at this level, 10% is a lot more, a lot more money, right?
Exactly.
Right. So it's very motivating. And I think a lot of listeners out there should take heed to this advice is to, one is not take a little bit of success and think like, oh, this is amazing. Let me take it all out and buy a Ferrari, year one. Really save it for a rainy day, right? I think Boyuan's lesson here is very sound here, right? Like, when you mentioned you had a big drop in your revenue, but I think you survived the storm, you weathered the storm because you also have conserved cash, conserved funds, so that you can, mount a counterattack, if you will, right, the following year and have the funds to do so, the ability to invest in a different strategy or a different viewpoint. But then if you use up all your cash, you can't do that. And that brings us to what I always say, like, you got to know your numbers, right? You have to know where you stand, how much cash you can conserve in your business so that you have the ability to do that, right? If you don't know your numbers, you'd be like, okay, let me go do this next year. It's okay, I can pivot. You look at your bank account and you don't have the money to do so. Well, right, then you kind of screw yourself and having that second or third chance to relaunch yourself, right? A lot of businesses don't really succeed on the first try, right? So I think going here strategy here is very, very sound. Thank you for that advice, Boyuan. 2 last questions here. What's next for you and your business? Any exciting plans in 2025 you want to share with the group here?
So right now I have like one very profitable business. I would love to have 2 or 3 by the end of the year.
Okay.
2x my current business again. Oh, that's it really.
Any hints at industries you're trying to hit or agency services you're trying to expand to?
I really want to get into like the consulting or coaching space. But I think my should be like slightly different. And then on the SaaS side of things, I really want to get in on that. I have no desire of launching my own ecom brand, to be honest. Personally, I don't really necessarily like ecom as like a vehicle, because physical products is just long, especially with tariff. Yeah, not very appealing for me personally. But I do think it's a fantastic opportunity, just not for me based on my circumstances. So yeah, the SaaS and consulting play, if I can nail those 2, big money this year.
That'll be great. Diversification.
Yeah, and
we're really looking forward to that.
Maybe plan for like a liquidity event on the SaaS in the next like 3 to 5 years. But I was actually thinking about it in December. Like I've ticked a lot of like my material goals. I just kind of enjoy it. Like if my lifestyle stayed relatively consistent for the rest of my life, I wouldn't care too much. But I want to keep growing for the sake of growing, because I just don't see anything else more fun to do in life. Like everything else I see as like little side quests, you know?
For sure. Hey, if you're having fun doing the business, that's another way to keep yourself motivated and keep going, right? So here at Profit House, our last question of the podcast is always to ask the guests here for one piece of advice, or 2 or 3, up to you, that you want to give to someone just starting their entrepreneurial journey. What would that be? Just some simple step where someone who's stuck in their ways, right? They're still working a 9-to-5 job and said, man, I don't know if I can be like Boyuan. I don't know if I can really step out there and be successful. What is some like concrete steps that they can follow today where they can start doing and they can get to your level in the next year or 2?
This goes back to that whole like 21% of businesses make it past 5 years. So don't look at statistics linearly. So what I mean by that is, if I tell the normal person, let's say, hey, bro, I'm going to start a business, they might hit me with a statistic of 80% of businesses fail within the first 5 years. It's risky, right? But that's a very single dimensioned. That is a single dimensional variable. However, if you flip it and make it 2D, let's say, right? Add an extra filter, because this is 100% of the entrepreneur's base, right? How about you add a filter that says, out of this 100% of people, how many founders worked minimum 8 hours a day for the past 5 years on the business? Boom, slashed, right? 50% just wiped out. Why? Because they're just dickheads. They're just not trying, you know? Didn't try, didn't put in the effort. Now you're left with 50, right? And then what if you add another filter that's like, okay, well, which one of those actually seeked advice and, you know, quietened their ego and listened to what other people had to say, rather than just like, for example, the typical brand owner that's like, my brand is the best, my product is the best, and it has to look this way because of my vision, you know, without listening to them.
Right.
Ah, there's another 25% gone. So now you're left with 1 in 4. Boom, right? And then you add another layer of filtering, which is like, okay, well, how many people entered proven markets and just didn't think like, oh, I'm really passionate about like, I don't know, like handwriting. I'm going to make a handwriting business. Or like, oh, I'm really passionate about fashion. I'm going to make a fashion brand. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to just print t-shirts and my prints are going to sell because they have like a cool inspirational quote.
Oh, for sure.
It's bullshit. You know? So that cuts down another 10%. So now you're left with 15. And then it's just, you isolate it down and you realize that actually 90% of people are just not competition. They're just waste of time. Like, if you just don't...
Most people don't put in the work.
No, they don't. Like, they don't want it. Like, they just don't care. Like, they're not actually competition. How many people are like me? For example, statistically in the UK, I would count as the 80%. Why? Because within 5 years, I closed my business, right? I moved to Dubai. I make more money. I'm a part of that 8% statistic. I make way more money.
So true.
So it's like, the fuck? So add maybe like another 10% to the 21%. And actually, it's actually not that risky at all. Because if you stop competing with 90% of people, and you expand the people, because, you know, a lot of people who are too successful belong to the 80% anyways.
Don't just listen to statistics. Follow through on what you say you're going to do.
Absolutely.
That's going to bring you a lot more success
than
what you're supposed to do. Boyuan, thank you so much for having on.
You're
Quickly, I know you have to go.
Yep.
Can you give a quick shout out there, any kind of promotional things you want to give away on this podcast?
Sure.
To first 10 listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. So you guys should work with me on emails. I'm genuinely really fucking good. And if you just search up my full name on YouTube, you'll see my email tutorials and you can book a call with myself or the team, because we are genuinely one of the best in the game. So thank you.
He really is. If you guys listened all the way through, you guys will know that that is true. Boyuan, thank you so much for being on this podcast. Thanks for everyone listening out.
Take care. Bye.
Thanks so much.
Bye.